Now, can you hear me online? I think. Yeah. Should I put my micro or this one? So I deactivate my micro here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you leave audio. Leave audio first.
Nyata nih sampai pasang kamera le, orang lihat piring-piring kamu.
Sini, kosong.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, especially a lot of students here. I can see the face. Today, we have a privilege of hosting two distinguished scholars from CIRAD, France. First is Dr. Leïla Bagny Beilhe from CIRAD UMR PHIM. And then the second, we have Dr. Pierre Bommel, yeah, from CIRAD UMR SENS. Dr. Leïla will give presentation Pest regulation on coffee and cacao based on agroforestry system. And later on, Dr. Pierre Bommel will present participatory agent-based simulation of socio-ecosystem to stimulate social learning with local stakeholders. So before we start, just give a two of them. Okay, I'm Purnama. I think many of you already know myself, but probably some of participants in online.
Recording in progress.
Purnama from IPB. Okay, just to save time, the time give to Dr. Leïla. Time is yours.
Thank you very much, Purnama. So my name is Leïla Benbey. I'm working from CIRAD. So CIRAD is a French research institute. Oh, you prefer me to stand up and to okay, so. Okay, thank you. Yes, so I'm Leïla Benbey. I'm working from CIRAD. So CIRAD is a French research institute who work on agronomy for development. So we work mostly in tropical countries. And my specialties is to work on ecology of pests and their management in perennial crop systems, so mainly in cacao and coffee agroforestry systems. So I used to work in different countries in Africa, mainly in Cameroon, and then in Latin America, in Costa Rica and Peru. So now it's my first time here to work in Indonesia, and I have the pleasure to work with Purnama and Marish, who is present here for her PhD. Can you go back before? Before. Okay, so I'm from, my research unit is called the PHIM, so it's the Plant Health Institute of Montpellier. In this research unit, we study the interactions between the plant and its environment, which have an impact on the health status of plants, their growth and their productivity. And so we look for interaction with microbial organisms or insects, whether pathogenic or beneficial. So in our research unit, we have like 4 different teams. So one works on interactions with between plant and pathogen. Another one to work on interaction between viruses, vectors, and plants. Another one on understanding the phytobiome of the plants. And the last one, the one that I belong to, work on understanding the epidemics at field level. So next, please. So the team that I work on works on plant pathogen and pest and on the dynamics and risk management. So the objective of this team is to understand how environmental factors affect the demography and performance of pests and pathogens and their impact on the yield of cultivated perennial plants to improve their management and to prevent epidemic risk. So as I said, we work mainly on perennial crops in diversified systems, so with lots of trees that are associated with the main crops. And our main questions are about what are the epidemiological processes at the origins of the dynamics of pests and pathogens? How do the factors that affect these processes interact in space and time? And how can these factors be managed to reduce the risk of an epidemic and how to anticipate the risk of an epidemic? So just the last slide that I have on that is to show that, so I belong to this team who work on pathways for regulation pests in biodiverse agrosystem. And we have another team who work more on modeling and prevention of epidemic risk. So maybe we can go to the next slide. Sorry. So today my talk will be about the pest regulation mechanism in coffee and cocoa agroforestry systems. And okay, so what we know is like coffee and cocoa is mainly cultivated under shade trees. So we can see that in every countries, we have almost 30% of the cocoa systems that are cultivated under shade trees and 40% of the coffee systems. So this picture, this one is from, the one from cocoa is come from Cameroon and the other one is from Costa Rica. So just like a small introduction, we can see that in this type of system, like agroforestry system, we have lots of services that are provided by associated trees. And among these services, for example, we have conservation of biodiversity, that has conservation of trees, of plants, of some, for example, butterflies, some ants. And so we can see that most of these systems are very biodiverse, but this diversity does not essentially decrease the yield of the main crop. So okay, for example, here we can see, this is a paper that our team published in Costa Rica. You can see that if you go from, okay, on the left, it's a system that are full stand system up to very diversified system. And then if you can see on each graph, you can see if it's more like positive or negative effect. So you can see, for example, in full stand system, you have the coffee yield that is very high in comparison, for example, with very diversified. The difference is not so important. And you can see, for example, if then you go from the rentability of your system. If you put, for example, the cost of input that is very high in full system and very low in diversified system, because mainly people do not use inputs like chemicals or products. And at least if you are looking, for example, the cash flow, you can see it's more important in full system. And it's for example, you have some kind of system that are not so diversified, and the difference is not so huge. So for us, the hypothesis is that how can you diversify the system to optimize different services, maybe for example regulation services and biodiversity conservation, without decreasing the yield of the crop and the cash flow of the plants. Yes, okay. Next, please. So this is just a small presentation of the different pathways that you have, for example, because my talk I will focus more on regulation. I will not talk about biodiversity conservation, and but I would like to introduce what am I studying in this kind of system. So you can see that the vegetation diversification, the more that you put some vegetation in your system, will have different effects that will be direct or indirect on the
on the impact of pests and disease. And some of these mechanisms act at the plant scale, other more at the, how to say that, the environment scale, and the last one more at the landscape scale. So as you can see, for example, you can have, when you increase the diversity, you can increase the physiological resistance of your plants, so that we have to reduce sometimes the pest and disease impact. You can also have like some allelopathic effects that you can see that. You can have some disruption of the cycle. For example, you can break the cycle of your pest, and you can also have like some microclimate alteration. So this is something that I would present more in detail. And you can also provide some alternative food or alternative refuge, for example, for natural enemies that can help you also to control your pest or your disease. And I also try to talk a little bit about conservation and facilitation of action of aerial natural enemies, and also the microclimate alteration in the example that I will present. Yes, so, but there is a difficulty because as you see, the mechanisms are very complex. So there is all the mechanisms cannot be mobilized at the same time. So it is very important to understand all the pathways to see how you can optimize them, because you cannot just say, oh yes, I would like to put some diversity to decrease the impact of my pest and disease without understanding the effect of the different mechanisms. And you have to think about how to intervene on different spatial and temporal scales. So my first example is in a coffee agroforestry system. So this study was based in Nicaragua. So Nicaragua is in Central America. And so you can see here, you have a soil, you have coffee, the shade trees, and you have their coffee berry borer, as here. You can find this pest here in Indonesia. And you have some predator community. So what do we do in that? Okay, so we wanted to study the interaction that we have between the shade trees, the coffee tree, the coffee berry borer, and the predators community. So we'd like to see how all these components interact in the system. So first, what we did is that we select 3 farms in the country, and those farms have like different level of management. One of the farm was an organic farm. The second one was like sustainable or integrated farm, and the last one like a conventional one with chemicals. And in each farm, what we decided to do, we select an experimental unit. So the experimental unit was not around our coffee tree, but it was around a shade tree. So in the different farms, we select 20 shade trees, and around these shade trees, we select like a 7-meter cycle, and in this cycle, we follow up like different coffee trees. And we do that, like the 20, for 3 farms, we have like 60 plots. So next one. Okay, so first, in the different farms, what we can see is that the management of CBB was like chemical in the conventional ones. They use Beauveria, Bassiana, and sanitary harvest in the sustainable one. And in the organic ones, they use only sanitary harvest, so without any ontopathogen. And you can also see something interesting. You have a decrease in the plant richness. So plant richness was the associated plants that you have with your coffee. So for example, the conventional one was the one with the higher biodiversity. So that was interesting for us to see this interaction between the management strategy and the biodiversity, the level of biodiversity that you have. And in each plot, we measure also the shade percentage, the associated tree surface. So for example, you have like the whole area, and we wanted to see what is the area of the associated trees. The coffee density within each cycle, the fruit load, so what was the production of fruit. Yes. So then we have like 3 indicators of the coffee berry borer population. We have the initial population that was like before coffee fruit appears. we have the peak of population, and we have the adults that we collect there in artisanal traps. So in Nicaragua, they don't use the broken trap that you know here. They use like some kind of bottle to attract the CBD. And what we also have like an indicator of ant population, because ants are known to be, some of them, predators of the CBD. So we have two groups of ants, the ones that were like numerical, so there are so many in the plot, and the ones that are known to be predators of the CBD. And what we did, like for analysis, we did a kind of structural equations that are you are trying to see the correlation, but in different pathways. I will show you the results. So what we show in this paper is like we just have, for example, when we compare, for example, organic and conventional, and here we compare sustainable and conventional. So when we compare organic and conventional, we can see that we have a decreasing of the adult of coffee bearer population and also the initial population. So we were like, oh, okay, we were expecting, so the conventional is not as better in that case. And we were thinking that it's because this is the effect of the harvest, sanitary harvest that we have. And we can also see that we have a negative effect of the organic and the sustainable versus conventional of the ant population. And we think that this is more due to, as I showed you, the fact that we have a higher level of biodiversity in the conventional farm. So what is interesting here is that you can see that even if you use, for example, chemicals, the fact that they have a high level of biodiversity really help to increase population, for example, of predators. So you have like a trade-off that you have to find. Maybe next one. Yeah, then what we show here is that the biodiversity that you have within each plot, I mean the coffee density, have a negative effect on the ants. So the more that you have coffee, the less we have ants. And also the fact that we have more trees had a negative effect on the TBV. And we were thinking that maybe it can be due to a barrier effect. Sometimes if you have very big trees, that can affect the movement of the CBV. Next. We also show something that about
that the shade had a direct positive effect on the initial population of CBD and a negative
adult population. So what is interesting, and you can see the shade cover also have a negative effect of the initial of the fruit load, which in at reverse we have a positive effect of the. What I would like to show here also is that the effect of shade cover on CBD management is not very easy to understand. So that's why in the second part I will show you how we try to better understand the shade effect. And the last result that we showed is a negative effect of the ant population on the CBD, but mainly the population that is composed of the predators. So what I'm saying that here we use what we call a structural equation. So this is a kind of generalist linear models, but all the models are explained because sometimes, as you can see, you have some direct effects, but you also have like effects that go through another parameter. This is something interesting because sometimes if you don't do this kind of equation, for example, you will just see the direct effect of shade cover on initial population, but you will never see this pathway that is also important. Maybe next. Okay. Then I will do a global conclusion. Now I just show you another example where I would like to present the work of one of our students, who his name is Marcos Ramos, and he worked on the impact of biodiversity over the pest and disease regulation service in cacao agroforestry systems. So here we changed. So we work on cacao in Peru. And we can see that in this part of the world where I'm working, we have different kinds of pests and disease. So we have here the malaria. This is a kind of how to say that a fungus. Here we have a kind of black spot. This is something I think there is in Indonesia. Here you have like something that is like the cocoa pod borer. So cocoa pod borer is a Lepidopterus that you have here in Indonesia, and is a very huge damage to the cocoa seed. And here you have like the principal room for the room, and this is like that cause a kind of as you see, your fruit cannot increase well. So there's almost no seed inside. So here is just to show you some picture of how it is in this kind of system there in Peru. And the work of Marcos is quite interesting because his main question is about regulation services, because all the time we can think that, okay, if we want to talk about regulation services, that means that we will go with incidence or presence or absence of your pest. But what we thought is that sometimes even the presence, very low presence can cause some very severe damage, and sometimes very high presence will not cause a big problem. So if you focus only on the incidence, that can be a problem, because at least you don't know if the impact is so important or not. So we try to have another definition of the pest and we do the regulation services, and for him it's more also biological and physical-chemical mechanism using an ecosystem that help regulate the appearance, incidence, and severity of the pathogen or pests known to infect and cause damage to other animals in the ecosystem. So it's quite complicated, but what is interesting is you try to link appearance, incidence, and severity, and not only on the. So the work of in Sweden is to try to develop some indicators, because now he thinks that he don't have an integrative indicator, he just has incidence. So as he said, he has incidence to track the presence of pests and disease. So incidence is here, for example, we have 4 or 6 that is damaged. Normally, for pathologies, the use severity is like, is it more damage or less damage? But for farmers, this is not like a very sometimes interesting indicator. So he tried to find a methodology to see the link between these incidents and the impact. And he would like to work on the yield loss caused by the different pests and diseases. So I will just introduce you a little bit about this yield loss. So it's more an agronomic focus, but to explain you why we go with this indicator. So next. Yes, there is some animation. Yes, so for example, in cacao, I don't know, you have the potential yield. This is what, for example, your tree can produce normally. I mean, if you have all the radiation, the temperature, you have like, and that depends mainly on the genetic potential of your tree. So you know that with you will have like a number of cherries. It is like a very small fruit, and this fruit will die for any reason. But this is your potential, what you can expect from your tree. And then you have what we call the accessible yield. This is the yield that is that results from limiting factors like water and nutrients. So here, for example, if you don't have enough water, if you have a problem on your soil or something, that will give you what is your accessible yield. And your actual yield for us is the difference that you have between when you have some disease, for example, the pest and disease that will occur in your system. So your accessible yield is something that you can have if, for example, you control all the pest and disease in your system. So for us, we decided to, when we can see that, next please, you can see that if you increase the injury, so the problem caused by pest and disease, you will decrease your yield from the potential to the actual one. And then, okay, this one is the accessible one, okay. And when your injury will increase, your yield loss will also increase. So this is the indicator that we would like to use. This is the yield loss not only because injury, we can say this is a kind of incidence, for example, but this is not the incidence that we want. We want to work more with this yield loss. Okay, and I won't spend too much time here. We focus on his work on the soil and on the microclimatic conditions and see their effects on yield loss with pest and disease. Here is a graph where we want to show you that in your agrosystem, you have biodiversity. And in this biodiversity, you have the trees, you have the herbs, the wheat, you have the soil, you have a microclimate, and you have natural enemies, you have pest and disease, you have all the conditions and the physiology of your cocoa tree, and that brings you so to the accessible yield. And if you remove the losses, you arrive to the actual yield. So I will not spend too much time, but this is just to show you that he decided to see effect of microclimate due to the trees on pest and disease and on yield loss. So just yes, we can. So this is the butterfly, the cocoa pod borer that we met in Peru. This is not the same species that we have here in Indonesia, but this is an emergent form there. I think they have this problem for almost 20 years now, and but there are some very important damage to the seeds. Next. Okay. So this is the region where we were. We have like different communities. In these communities, we have like full sun and shaded plots, and we work in different seasons, so dry season and wet season. And so first, how did we calculate this indicator? Can we go to the next one? Okay. So as I said, we have different pest and disease. And what we were interesting is to understand, for example, here you can see black pod, but when you see the black pod on the pod, how many seeds can be destroyed? Can you just go to the, oh no, there is an animation. So for example, here you have a pod that was damaged with the cocoa pod borer in Peru. And you can see there you have, for example, a part of the pod that were healthy. You have a part of the one that was like affected, so that means that can decrease the quality of the cocoa, but you can still sell it you can sell it. And the last one is like some destroyed seed that you can't do anything with that because there's no weight, there's no nothing in this seed. So just next. So I won't talk about but so what Marcos did, he tried to make some equation to understand what was the proportion of affected seed, what was the proportion of destroyed seed, and the last one, the proportion of the seed damage ratio, what he called that in his paper. And next, please. So what he showed, for example, is that for the black pod, you have like 10% of the seeds that are completely destroyed. You have 55% sorry, 55% almost that are affected, and 35 that is a very healthy one. You can see, for example, with the frosty cloudworms, this is the most damaging pest in Latin America. You can lose like 70% of your seed. And for example, with here is what we call the American cocoa pod borer. You can see you have like 50% that are okay. So what does that mean? That means if you have one pod with black pod, one pod with American cocoa pod borer, inside you can take almost 50% of your seeds. So that means this is not the same to say I have an incidence of one pod affected by I don't know, frosty cloudworm and one pod affected by cocoa pod borer. So that's why we look for this indicator, because if you go to the field, you will only see that, and you say, oh, okay, so my incidence here is this number, and my incidence here is this number, but the impact is really different. And this is to show you. For example, here you have a disease, and you can see that, oh, I have an incidence of 40%. So all these trees have the incidence of 40%. But considering what when Marcus make his calculation, you will see that the losses will be really different for all these trees, even if the incidence is 40. Then he makes some calculation on the soil, but I won't present you so much what he did on the soil. And you can see all that in the paper that he did. And so it's Marcos. And so what we did, for example, we make some measurement of the microclimate and the shade. So we use an hemispherical lens, and we make some picture above the cocoa tree and below the cocoa tree. So next, please. So this is what you can see here. For us, we consider that here is your cocoa tree. We consider a cocoa tree receives some light, some shade from the associated trees, and he also produces his own shade that we call like this is the shade of the cocoa tree. So at least you have like the total shade is the shade received by associated trees and the shade received by the cocoa by himself. So that was something interesting, because if you look at lots of paper, you will just see the associated shade. But you know that, for example, for a disease or pest to develop, you will need humidity, you will need temperature, and temperature in humidity is a product of associated shade, but also to the shade of the cocoa. Because even if you are in full sun, like this cocoa tree, he has some shade because of the leaves of the cocoa inside. So you will have a microclimate that is internal and that will have an effect of pest and disease. So what we did that was interesting in this paper is we worked with an indicator that called vapor pressure deficit. And this is really interesting because that explains a little bit the difference, the link between temperature and relative humidity. And using that, we show that was really interesting to explain the losses of due to the different pests and diseases. So just to, this is my almost my last slide. First, what we showed here is like we have different combination of pest and disease, and this different combination of pest and disease was linked with different level of shade. For example, in full sun, we have like many pest and disease, and here when we have like loss of shade, for example, we have a different combination of pest and disease. So that was quite interesting because that show you maybe your loss will be the same, but the combination of the pest and disease is different. So you have to manage that differently. And here what he showed that the vapor pressure deficit was like a key to explain the loss that he has in his system. And that was also, so that was under the effect of associated trees and also the total shade in the system. So this paper was just published now, and he's accepted, and now he's in a good journal. So I think you can go to see the results to understand more, because now I try to explain you everything quite rapidly. But you will see that if you work in agroforestry systems, I think this paper process is really interesting to understand how to study shade, how to distinguish effects that you have with shade and microclimate. So the last one. So as a conclusion, what I want to say is that in these systems, you have like many interactions. So you have to set up, this is what I would like to show you first in Nicaragua, to set up a suitable protocol that will be very well adapted to your question. To think about the statistical tools you will use, because that will depend if you want to see the pathways or if you just want to see correlation, like basic correlation, to understand the mechanism. And you need also to have a relevant expertise, like someone who can explain you how the pest and the disease works, that this is really important. Then, okay, as I said, the plant diversity and pest dynamics, it is very complicated because it varies according to the scales, I mean the weather, also the spatial scales. Sometimes you can ask how much biodiversity I need in my system, and as I showed you, you can have sometimes an optimum for yield and also for conservation. How much shade we can use? What do you want? Kind of disease and pests and loss, and I don't know. What is the link with the production losses? So what is acceptable for your farmers? Is he okay to lose 10% or does he want to lose nothing? And so we need to better understand the underlying mechanism and the management strategy that we want to set up. There is also what I showed you, a trade-off between the pesticide use and the plant diversity that you use. My talk is not to say that we have to stop pesticide. I mean, at a personal point of view, I would say that today it's better to stop with pesticide use, but it is not feasible for all the farmers. But maybe you can have a good balance of the use of pesticide and the diversity that you have in your system. And the last thing, I think, is just to say that from my point of view, if you want to make research in agroecological protection, if you want to have this agroecological approach, you need interdisciplinary approach because you need to work with statisticians, you need to work with agronomists, you need to work with biologists, with phytopathologists, and everything. So thank you.
Okay, we have 15 minutes to take a question from you and also from participant online. So please, there's a question from online. Okay. Okay, I will read the question from online first and then later on students from the classroom here. So if you have a question, please prepare your question. Okay, I will read the question. It's very long question. From Lufianto, can you, yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, Leïla, so it's a long question, so please.
Lamaris.
Okay, thank you. I think, yes, I can see the first question about the effect of climate change and more on the suitability area for cocoa plantation and the impact that have on pests and disease. So as mentioned here, of course, in coffee we have lots of studies because coffee was cultivated by at higher level. So before, some areas where you have coffee, you didn't have some kind of pest. And there are lots of studies now show you that coffee berry is now going to higher level in the mountains because temperature is decreasing. For cocoa, we don't have exactly the same scenario because this is mainly a cultivation that is in low level. But what we can see that is sometimes you can produce cocoa at some higher altitude, but not so much because it needs rain, important rain. And for the pest and disease, we didn't really see the effect of climate change. But for example, in Peru, we are working on that because people say that we have more and more longer dry season. And sometimes this longer dry season can facilitate the dispersion of some kind of spores of some disease. So we are trying now to understand the effect of this climate change. But this is how to say, this is climate change, but considering the changing between the rainy season and dry season and how long is the rainy season in comparison to dry season, and not so much on temperature, but there are other teams in the world who work on that. I hope I respond to the question. Then I cannot read Indonesian, so.
That's not question, the Indonesian.
Okay.
Dari ruangan ini, you might ask question in English or Indonesian, so I will translate it. Otherwise, you can just directly use English. Apa? Silakan. Okay, apa?
I just want to clarify, there's some interesting data in your presentation. The first presentation that there's a compare between chemical, conventional, and then sustainable, and then organic.
Yeah.
The what if I'm not wrong, I see that the plant diversity is less in organic
Yeah.
than on chemical. The rule of thumb is to be applied, be used in organic approach. It should be the diversity enhancing. That is this accurate policy on that.
No, this is something that we wanted to study that because we didn't want to say, okay, conventional is full sun without biodiversity. We would like to work on this trade-off between the use of chemical and the biodiversity. So we said, okay, if we are organic, we don't use any chemical, but we don't have a high level of biodiversity. What is the effect in comparison with somewhere when you use a chemical, but you have a high level of biodiversity? So our purpose was to try to compare that because we thought that it was interesting instead of saying, okay, chemical will just kill everything. We know that, but we would like to see if even if it kills everything, if you bring more diversity with it, can we see something different? And finally, we can show that the effect of plants was different, so that was how to see that. It's provocative to try to see if we see.
So is that absolute minimum that you have diversity of plant, you can use chemical that's going to be nice.
Yes. Yeah.
The other thing that I'm interested in the soil. It is a subsoil like natural condition or.
Yes, for the moment.
And so the slide. Yes, definitely. No, before please,
I told before.
before this one. Up. And earlier slide.
That's important.
Earlier please.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Earlier.
For the team where I work.
Yeah, that's one.
Okay. I can show you here. I think you talk here about when I talk about understanding the factor. No.
No, that's a diagram. I think this one.
Okay.
Enhancement of diversity, active soil biota. This it's been. You have to enhance organic matters in the soil, like the microbial.
Yeah.
Development.
Yes, this is something that the student in Peru is trying to do. He's in different. He made some measurements on the soil biota, and so he tried to understand the functioning of the soil, how much biodiversity is inside, what is the texture of the soil, if it's more, if it's changed considering the trees that you put in your system, and how this microbiota then is linked with Pest. So this is like the second in Peru. This is the second chapter of his thesis. I did not present that, but he's doing this work with, and we have specific protocols to study the soil biota.
Yeah, because here we're trying to enhance the soil health. So that's why I like this data.
And we put like some kind of
Layar aja.
organism. Or
Yeah, we may conserve and maybe added other microorganisms
like litter.
like plant promoting
Okay.
litter bacteria, decomposers, and other. But the rule of thumb is you have a high organic matter, organic content in the soil. You may nurture those microbial things, and then the agroecosystem services will be better. I think that's.
And is it a recommendation of research or is it our farmers themselves are trying to do?
I believe maybe we're talking more. Farmer is also an expert. So maybe we most of the time we learn from what we found and then we try to clarify with the universal science how to explain that. So but that's one is interesting study and it's understanding what usually we just provide one or two parameters related about skill expense. Thank you.
Yes, because for example, this is the expertise of farmers. You know, in the use of microorganisms in Latin America, it was like very, very good at that. And we try a lot to, and then we can see that in different continents. For example, now we are in Africa, more and more farmers are learning from what they are doing in Latin America, and they are trying to do their own project now. And I'm quite interesting to understand what is happening in here, for example, to see if.
I don't know, maybe the movement of regenerative agriculture has the same line. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any question from student, please? Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Pierre. I want to ask a question regarding the ants. As you say, ants are the predator for CBB, right? And the interesting statement that you say is like the more coffee is the less ants. I just want to know like how is that happening? What affect the ants theoretically? Thank you.
So thank you for your question. We show that we saw that the fact that you simplify the system, maybe there are less refugees, so less habitat for the ants themselves. So sometimes that will favor like one or two species. So maybe the more common one, but the ones that don't have an effect that are really interesting. So this is not because ants are very a very crazy group, because you have like predators, you have others that will have another utility in your system. So when the species that we work on decrease considering the coffee density, and we think that links with resources and with the habitats of the ants. So maybe that it's too simple for them. So for the species that we study, we didn't see a positive effect. So for us, it's really effect of habitat and resource that is decreased in comparison when you have like other trees or other plants or other things.
Did you only study to one species ants or a lot?
What?
I mean the ants that you study is only one species?
No.
Or...
So in the first group, this is the more invasive ants, like the genera of Solenopsis, for example, and Phaedon. So the more like you can find everywhere. And the second one was like described in the literature like predators of CBB. So predators of CBB, you have like Tapiroma species, for example. And why? Because that it's very, very small species that can enter within the coffee berry. So that's why we did these two groups. The first group is like synopsis and failure, and the second group is really very specific ants that we know that they have a behavior that can help us to help them to feed and to predate on seedling.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question from student in the room? Also from the online? Any other question? Okay, while waiting for a question from student. That's a question regarding the activities of arthropod below ground. How important to study the complex interaction between arthropod below ground and above ground, because there is some more publication that the activity of pest and disease above ground actually related with the activities of fauna and flora below ground. So what was the thing?
So we work more on that. We don't necessarily expect a direct effect of pest and disease incidents, but we thought more about an effect on the plant health itself. I mean, with when I talk about physiological resistance or this kind of things, so sometimes you can have like some also some fauna below ground that can help to improve not the fertility but the functioning that will help the plant to have more nutrients and kind of things. So in the thesis on cacao in Peru, we are trying to, we have like some protocols now that are developed in CIRAD with a team that works specifically on the soil. This is how to say that, an easy protocol to set up on the field. And you have some kind of some volume of the soil, and then you count how many worms you have inside, how many ants, how many, and you classify them, and with that you can have an idea of the quality also of your soil, and then try to link that with the health of your plant. And we are trying to do that, but up to now we don't have the results. But I think this is really important now to talk about this mesofauna that you can meet up to 20 centimeters or 50 centimeters that is directly linked with your tree and the litter and everything. Try to better understand that. It's really important.
Because I know that more and more study for that. Usually here in our department, we never think about the importance of below ground activities, but now we realize that more and more important.
We have colleagues who work, in CIRAD, who worked a lot on that, but in Thailand, I think, and more in area systems. They work a lot on the activity below ground and the quality of the soil in these area systems in different countries in Southeast Asia. So maybe there are interesting things.
Yes. Okay, any question? Tadi ada yang mau datang di belakang, silakan. Bahasa Indonesia juga boleh. One more question. Oh, okay.
So, hi, my name is Sahaf, and I am the first year student on plant protection department on MIP University. So I want to ask you, maybe it's too basic, but I'm sorry if it's too basic. I want to know more about microclimate and how it affects your studies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think in agroforestry system, the microclimate is really essential because most of people, because since that you put like more trees above your coffee or above your cocoa, you are modifying the relative humidity that you have. And for example, for the fungus, you know that more you have humidity, more you will have disease and fungus development. So when you are working on pest and disease regulation dynamics, I consider in agroforestry system, I consider that you have to take into consideration the microclimate. at least to measure temperature, humidity, and also to find the link, maybe, before you start. If you don't have anything to measure temperature, humidity, maybe you can just try to make a link between the shade that you have and the change in temperature, humidity, and then you can use the shade as a proxy of your microclimate. This is what we try to do with Marcos, with his study. Just to say, okay, with this level of shade, we can expect this effect on the microclimate. So then you don't have to measure all the time the microclimate. You can use just the link between the two. But at least you need to do this first step. If you don't want to set up like captors, humidity, sensors of humidity or temperature in all your plots, in all your trees, you need to calibrate a little bit to find the link between shade and microclimate to then be able to make some hypotheses for the pest and disease development. Because you know that your pest and disease will be influenced by the microclimate that you have in your trees or in your. I don't know if I answer your question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
Okay, still any other question? Okay. Otherwise, we'll give a big plus to okay, in a few minutes, we'll have Dr. Pierre Bommel, who will be presenting on participatory agent-based simulation of socio-ecosystem to stimulate social learning with local stakeholders. Dr. Bommel research is at the forefront of leveraging simulation technique to foster social learning and enhance sustainability within socio-ecosystem. Okay, without further ado, let us delve into a journey of knowledge, collaboration, and innovation as we explore the forefront of research in plant protection and agroecology with our esteemed visiting scholar. And the time is yours, Dr. Pierre.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Pierre Bommel. I'm a researcher from CIRAD, and my talk is very different from the one of Leïla, because I will talk to you about how to involve stakeholders, farmers, different kind of people in the research, and using what we call agent-based modeling and participatory modeling. So if you have any questions during my talk, do not hesitate to interrupt to ask some questions. So once again, I'm a researcher from CIRAD that is part of the University of Montpellier. CIRAD is divided into three departments: the biological systems, from whom the unity of Leïla is part of. And the second department more on agronomic systems. And the third department on environment and society. And I belong to this third department, and my unity is called SENS, to knowledge, environment, and society. This is a unity much with a multidisciplinary unity, with sociologists, anthropologists, economists, geographers, agronomists, and computer scientists. In this group, I am a computer scientist. So the talk is very different from the one of Leïla, but my background is on biology and ecology and in mathematics. And in that unit, we have developed a platform, an agent-based platform that is called CORMAS, that is freely accessible. This is the page of CORMAS. CORMAS means for Common Pool Resources and Multi-Agent System. So I will present you briefly what is an agent-based model, and after that, how we can use them with the people. Mainly in modeling, there is two kinds of categories of simulation models. The mathematical models, we call them stock and flow models. We call also them holistic or systemic models. They describe the global behavior of your system. They are mainly used in macroeconomics, and they are mainly based on differential equations. On the other part, you have a kind of, we call them agent-based models, where we will articulate two levels, the individual element of your system and the global behavior of your system. So we are not in mathematics, we are much more on computer program. An example for that, for example, in epidemiology, we have a renowned model SENS, susceptible infected system. The version of this model in stock and flow model mathematics is this one, this representation. You have a stock of people, healthy people, and you have a stock of infected people, and we have a flow from this box to another one by this one. Infection is, and the relation is the quantity of I multiplied by the quantity of S multiplied by the factor of parameters, infection rate. Okay, this way. Then, during this the system, the infected people can recover naturally. There is no death in this model. Nobody can die. Just a little sick, and you can recover. And this recovery level is depend only on I and gamma recovery rate. So this scheme, you can represent it in mathematical equations. So you have ds on dt. The evolution of this stock here is what will leave this stock, so minus that, and what will come to this stock, plus this one. And for this one, this is the contrary. So you have your differential equation. Then, in mathematics, you can say that we have the hypothesis of resolving this equation system at the equilibrium. That means that when the system doesn't move anymore, so there is no more production 0 and 0. Then you can solve the problem, the system, and you can see the values of the system at a given time. For example, here you start from here. Your population is almost 99% is healthy, and 1% is sick, and you will have this kind of evolution. Then at the end, you have an equilibrium. If you start here or here, you will reach the same equilibrium. Okay? So this is just to show you what are the main, this is a classical way of doing models in science. I don't know if you already have some idea about that kind of mathematical models. Okay. Don't worry, I won't spend a lot of time on that, just to have an overview for you. On the same problem equation system, we can try to solve it with agent-based ABM, the ABM version. Here we have some individuals that can be it is in French, right? That can be susceptible, and part of them will be infected. But here, instead of speaking of the whole population, we will speak of each individual. And we will translate the infection rate to a probability of infection when I meet another person. But just by random movement, I can meet somebody that is sick, and I can I have 30% to basic in my job. And instead of for the recuperation, for the recovery rate, we have a period of recovery, 10 days, for example, for one individual. And by simulating that, we get that kind of results, evolution of the population. So this is similar to the previous one, but something more fuzzy. Okay, this is the main idea. So by using an agent-based model, we will focus on the entity, on the agents, on the farmers, on the plants, on the trees. And we will see what happened at the global level. So here we see what happened at the global level. Why consider each individual? The mathematical models assume that individuals are indifferent and interchangeable. That is this hypothesis of interchangeability. And but we can say that there is also a principle of localization of the interaction between two persons. An organism is mainly affected by the organism and environmental conditions that are around itself. So, I will go directly to an example here. Let's see that I have some seeds, 12 seeds. I want to distribute them seed regularly on the field, and then to let it grow. At the end, I can have some trees, regular trees of distribution of the tree. If you send these seeds randomly, some of the trees will have more water and more light from the sun, and the other one will be in competition for this element. And at the end, the one that is more isolated will capture more water and light. And at the end, you have some kind of competition between the individuals, and you may have something very different than the previous. So we said this is just to illustrate that the fact that by taking individual into consideration may affect the whole system. Okay. In ABM, you have a lot of famous models, and there is, for example, this book, Growing Artificial Societies, is a very famous book. It's now old, but it's quite interesting to read it, just to see how this kind of simple models can be used as a laboratory, virtual laboratory, to experiment social experiments. So normally I go, when I do this course, I have what is the ABM stand for? ABM, agent-based model. No. So okay, yes. So normally I start my course with a real example of models, but I have no time today for that. So I will just go to show you the interest and the cons and the pros and the cons of this kind of methodology. So the good ones, the good ones are this one. So I would say that modeling, whatever the kind of modeling, is a dynamic learning process, first of all. Mainly, we see the modeling as this way: observation of the system, analysis and design of our model, implementation of the model, calibration and validation. But I think that it's important to see that this process is an iterative process. And first of all, you have to target a question. You don't do a model just to represent the world. You have to answer a question. So you have to target and identify this question. And from this question, you will have a representation, a first conception of your system. Then you will evaluate your work, your system, and modify the conception. And all that is a learning loop. You will learn by doing it. because we compare your model with the reality. And so you can revise the question because of that. Revising the question means that you still are learning. And you will be able to better understand your system and to anticipate the evolution of your system you are studying. But at the same time, we will say that modeling is a way of dealing with complexity, but we have to see this model as a crutch, either that as a crystal ball. We are not doing prediction, but just trying to better understand and anticipate the system. Because we have to keep in mind that all models are wrong. A simple definition of model, what is a model is, a model is a simplified representation of a system. So it is by necessarily wrong. The interest of the IBM also is to describe the interactions between the agents, the element of the system, and to understand the consequences of the interactions. So once again, we have to deal with complexity. For example, if you design a model, you are not able to understand, to anticipate how this model will evolve by simulation. Here is a simple example from a cellular automaton. So here, each pixel is a cell. We call it a cell. It is an entity. And this entity has 4 possible states: yellow, orange, dark orange, and red. So each pixel only 4 possible states. And the transition rule is this one. If you have 3 or more neighbors that will be in your next stage, for example, here I am dark orange, I have 3 red neighbors, so my next stage will be red. Very simple. Very simple red rule. And I have this initial state. How will it evolve this entity? Okay. So this is unpredictable for myself to understand that the system will evolve this way. And if I run it for many, many times, I will get that. It is impossible for me, even if I have designed this model, to anticipate the final figure of the system. Okay. The interest of the IBM is also to coupling dynamics without the hypothesis to resolve the equation to be at the equilibrium. So coupling dynamics. Mainly in our model, we will describe the natural part of the system. So for example, with the soil, so we will pay attention to the soil quality, the vegetation that is on the soil, etc., the climate. Then we will couple this system with economic and social dynamics part. So with relationship between the agent of this system, the community, how we work with community, the economic part, the hierarchy, relationship between the agents, etc. And so many things. And what is important for us is to work on the interactions between these several dynamics. Okay, I continue. There's another example here. I have a very simple agent model. Some agents are forester. They want to cut some trees. At the same time, the forest has this own dynamic to grow. And you can see how a landscape can evolve according to 2 different dynamics. In ABM, what we will focus is on the emergence of phenomena, so the global system. We will For example, here we have a pathway of ants, and we have the food and the habitat. And what, as an observer from outside, we can see this path of ants. But we cannot say that the ant, there is a leader on the ant in the colony of ants that say that you have to go this way, and there is no. We suppose that this path emerged from local interaction between the ants and pheromones. So we will concentrate by modeling on the behavior of each ant, but as an observer of simulation of the emergence of phenomena at the global level. Here, for example, is a fluctuation between prey and predators. Another model. You will modelize in your model the behavior of the predator that will try to catch the prey, but at the end you will observe this kind of regular fluctuations. This is not something that you write in the model, but it's something that emerged from the simulations. Okay. So once again, it's the idea to articulate multiple levels from the local to the global level. So once again, we'll focus when modeling your attention on the behavior of your region, and you will see what happened at the global level, how the organization is modified. And by the way, how the organization can have some constraint, some feedback on the behavior of each one, positive or negative feedbacks. Agent-based model has also the didactic interest. It is much complicated to explain a differential equation to kids, to farmers, than this kind of models. ABM is now we are used to use computers and video games, and everybody can understand what happens. You don't have to solve a mathematical equation to understand how to behave the system. So there is a very good didactic interest for that kind of models. You have also the formalism that we call it UML, Unified Modeling Knowledge. It's a formalism to design a model, and it allows a collective design of the model. So in that way, I say that modeling in that way is a preferred way for interdisciplinarity. But in that way, the modeler has to play the role of the animator of a meeting with a listening posture to understand the idea of each specialist. And you can also use that kind of collective design with stakeholders and partners. You will focus your attention on the actors and their behaviors instead of working just at the global level or just at the micro level. You will focus on the agents, the farmer. What are their needs? What are their possibilities to work? So there is a mix between French, English, and Spanish. Sorry, for example, this is an activity diagram that represents the rules, the behavior of an agent, of a farmer. This is a case in Uruguay, a farmer in Uruguay during the winter season. And this is the decision point, and from that, you can put that in your model and see what happens in the model. You can take into account spatial structure, for example. Okay, you can have some very simple spaces, but through very realistic representation of the space. And you can integrate several point of views on the system. Here, for example, we can have the same simulation, the same model, But here, the POV on the farmer, so this is the farm of each one. And here you can have also a POV on the land cover. For example, this is the same model, but several layers of representation. And the last one is the last interest is to interact with the simulation. So I will go on that way now. And what we do with SORAS, especially, that is that there is a possibility to interact directly with the simulation. During a simulation, you can modify, you can move your agent, you can send some specific message to your agent, and just continue the simulation and see what are the effects of these modifications. And we call all this kind of doing the commode approach. Commode stands for companion modeling. I think I have some slide. I will present the commode approach a bit after that. We have a list of cons regarding this kind of tools at ABA. I won't go into the detail, just to more quickly to say that those programming code can be seen as black box. It's very difficult to describe them. You have to describe them, but it's not so easy. So some people say that they are black box and you cannot rely on that the black box. You have also non-demonstrable properties. For example, in the mathematical models of SIS, you can see that your system will converge to an equilibrium at a certain time. You can demonstrate mathematically. In ABN, you just have to run and see what happens. You cannot demonstrate that your system will converge to a given equilibrium. There is a problem of divergence between the conceptual model, what you have in mind, and what you will implement. So there is a lack of reliability of the results of your models. And because of that, it is hard also to replicate because of the black box. It's hard to replicate the model, but we have, as a scientist, we have to do that replication. When you do a model, you can publish your model, you can represent your model, you can publish your model, and another team, another researcher should replicate the result. And if he reaches the same result, okay, you have some confidence in the result. The question of hypersensitivity versus robustness of the model is also something important. There is no limitation because we are in computer science. You can put more and more details in your model. People at the beginning say, "Oh, that's nice. I can do what I want." It's good, but it's not so good because it's important to make the difference between the categorical model and the Kleenex model. I prefer the Kleenex model. You can work for 10 years on the cathedral model, and at the end, you are not able to demonstrate some properties. You have a lot of chance to have some mistake in the code. So it's better to keep simple models to work on your question. And there is also a cost for apprenticeship, but it's the same thing for the mathematical models. Okay, I go now into the companion modeling approach. We can say common approach. So there is a book in English now that speaks about that. That starts from the statement to that the following statement: to manage resources in a sustainable and equitable way. The decision is rarely the result of a single decision maker, but rather the consequence of collective choices by the actors. And so the appropriation of decision is something very important in our team. And also the second statement is that a system of value that is specific to each society. The societies will classify their resources to be used not by basic needs, but by a system of value. So we have worked for several years with Elinor Strong, I don't know if you heard about this lady. She won the Nobel Prize in Economy in 2009, and she worked on the commons, and that with the idea that a community of farmers will manage common resources in a sustainable way. He did his work in opposition to a famous article by Gareth Hardin, the tragedy of the commons. Did you heard about this famous article? More or less, Hardin said that when you have a common place, everyone will try to catch the maximum of resources from this system, this common system, and at the end, we will have a tragedy because everybody will overexploit the system, and the system will crash. And this lady spent all this life to say that this vision is not real. Hardin say of free access. Free access is different than the common property, common resources of a community. So, okay, from that idea, we build this companion modeling with the idea to accompanying changes in organization and practices with stakeholders. So first of all, we have to identify your system, socio-ecosystem. So what are the actors, what are the resources, what are the actors? And from that, you make some interviews with different actors to understand their needs and the vision they have of the system. Then continue your work to try to get through an arena, a discussion, a global discussion that with the different actors of the system, and to try to reach to co-design a simplified representation of this system. And by this way, stakeholders and researchers will learn together by creating, modifying, observing, and assessing some simulations. And at the end, you may have some knowledge, perception, behavior, and practices that could evolve along the process and can lead to collective actions. So this is mainly the idea to reach these collective actions by doing participatory modeling with the stakeholders. But with the idea, as a scientist, do not provide turnkey expert solutions, but to let the people you will work with to reach this solution by themselves. So once again, we have iterative and adaptive learning process. We do that, identify the issue, the question, analysis of the issue, collective conception of the model, participatory simulations, and new issue, new question, and we repeat this cycle. I will go now into that part, participatory simulation, what do we mean? No, just to say that, okay, it's a scientific posture on the design and the use of models. It's a kind of participatory modeling where we can consider the model not as a crystal ball, but just a mediation tool to support the dialogue between the stakeholders and to help from collective decision. And with two objectives, a research objective on the complex system, and with a sub-objective to share and produce knowledge on this socio-ecosystem, socio-ecological system, and the second objective to support and to improve collective decisions regarding natural resources management. So mainly we can use this, when you have a model, there is two ways to implement your model. into a computer, modeling computer, or through role-playing games. A game is also a simulation with real people. You design the rules, you design the environment, then the people as player will interact with between them, and you will have a scenario that will be performed. And we discussed that now you will see now the idea of serious games. So Marish, I understand this because we will do that. Serious game for natural resources management. Well, there is a lot of different kind of games, but we will focus on two kind of game for research and game as intervention. I won't go into the details. The objective of game for research is to collect information, data to perform research. The objective of this kind of game for intervention is to trigger and facilitate changes. But what we learn from this kind of games, we have three aspects of what we can learn: cognitive aspect, relational aspect, and normative aspects. Well, I won't go into the detail, just to say that we still are in a loop of learning loop process with different kind of learning. Some example. I have a PhD student. We work on it was not in Peru, it was in Bolivia, on quinoa. So this is plant of quinoa here, and the work of Manuela Guerra was to understand the socio-environmental consequences of the quinoa boom in Bolivia. And from that, we had some interviews, etc., and we create a game to better understand how the system can evolve and to share this vision of the evolution of the system with the farmer on the, we say, the altiplano of Bolivia. Another example, this is pure simulation. In that case, I work in the Amazon forest, and I work on the deforestation, the evolution of the deforestation, the pioneer front of deforestation in the Amazon, working on the behavior of the agents. So we can see that by their needs, by identifying the needs of the farmers, you can see how the landscape can evolve. So we can see that the common tools are two kinds of ABM, so pure simulation, or on the other side, role-playing game. RPG is for role-playing games. And advantage and disadvantage for both aspects of the simulation. And just, okay. So, and we can see that there is a hybrid forms of models from the pure ABM, so pure simulation. The pure simulation, you can see the evolution of the landscape for the years. On the other side, the pure role-playing games. This is with farmers in the Amazon forest. But you can also now have some kind of hybrid model simulation where a part of the evolution of the system is by the computer, but the people also can do something, play between them and see what happens. So the idea, okay, is to do some simulation, so to perform some scenarios. But at the end, because of that, at the end is to speak about the evolution of the system with the stakeholder, with the participant. And the most important phase of this kind of process is the debriefing phase. When you debrief, you will speak about the real problem on the system, on the field, and the diversity of the viewpoints and the actors. And you can try to reach a collective decision, a collective agreement of the way of managing the resources. So this is the case in the Amazon forest. Not another case in to deal with pollution of water in Costa Rica. So you can see here that we work with children in schools, with breeders and with farmers, and we did this kind of models, another kind of models, physical model, where with sand, box and sand, and we can see the evolution of the water into the soil, and to understand what the movement of the water in the soil. And at the end, you can have a game, assisted game with the computer, when you can perform some activity, farming activities, and see the evolution of the pollution. Okay, j'arrête là. And stop there. Just before stopping, just to say that with Leïla, we work on the CBB diffusion in Costa Rica. So the CBB of the coffee berry borer. This is the description, structural description of the model. So here you have, this is UML language, so the formalism, the landscape made of plots, each plot made of 3 by 3 cells. So each cell is the size of 20 by 20 meters. On each cell, you have a kind of cover, one cover, that can be coffee, forest, or pasture. The farmer manages a farm, and he can apply some strategies. You will see after that. Then here, on the coffee, you can have a berry cohort. So this is not one animal, this is a cohort of animals, because you have millions and billions of animals. And the CBB cohort, so the berry cohort, sorry, for the fruits. And on the berry cohort, you can have some is colonized by a CBB cohort. And one CBB cohort is in one stage, that can be egg, larva, and two kind of adults. So after having designing this structure of the model, we go into the evolution, how is the behavior of the CBB cohort. So I won't go into the detail, just to explain that by this kind of diagrams, we describe the evolution. And at the end, we get that kind of, we got that kind of evolution of the landscape, but also we can measure some indicators. So in this case, this is an example of the simulation of this model without management by the producer. But mainly, it was the thesis of Sergio, and he defended his thesis in December this year, but he will continue to work with this model with the producer, coffee producer in Costa Rica. But in our idea is to work with Marish to reuse this model, to test if it's generosity, if this model works here. If it works, we can say that there is a big generosity. Otherwise, we have to modify the model, to revise them, to adapt the model to the Indonesian condition here. Then after that, we have the idea to do participatory research with the farmers, coffee farmers, in the fields with the marriage, using games and simulation, and perhaps hybrid simulation. Okay.
Thank you, any question from this room or from internet? Internet. Global. Yeah, I'm wondering what kind of modification that we should make if we want to apply this model from Costa Rica to Indonesia. So as you know, we are going to Pangalengan, Bandung, and North Sumatra. So wondering if we can just practice this so we know the problem and what kind of modification that we have to do. So what kind of
I cannot answer your question now.
So we have to try.
Because it's my first time here, I don't know how it works coffee culture in Indonesia. We need some specialists in the CBB to compare the CBB from Costa Rica with the one of here.
Okay. That would Maris work excellent.
Yeah.
The
The weather also, okay. Here you have the weather, but it's not a modification of the structure of the model. You can modify, for example, here in this model you have the weather, and this is real data of the weather of the rain and the temperature. So you don't have to modify; you just have to change the data. The temporal series of climate.
How about the farmer practices?
This is something else. This is something I cannot say. But this is something where I think that the benefits of participatory is to discuss these strategies and to test them during a game or during a simulation.
Okay, bye.
Sorry. Thank you very much, SENS and inviting. Or maybe Budami first, because okay. I think we also make a simple model to use a simulation to make easier understanding for the farmer to comprehend some biological phenomena. In the Maris case, maybe for coffee berry border, maybe you can make a not this model, but a more simple model. For example, if you harvest in the certain age of the berry, what is the effect to the market and something like that?
Yes, I forgot to say that I think that here the harvest is different than in Costa Rica. Because once a year you harvest, or 2 times a year. Here I think it's more regular. There is because of the climate. You have to harvest more regularly.
And also maybe the selected harvest, or maybe all of the harvest. I think if I have maybe have a time to talk to you more, I would like to learn a lot of things about modeling that one. Especially to answer the question, because I'm working a lot with an IPM farmer pit school. And if IPM is good, why the adoption is so slow?
Why?
If the IPM technology is good, why the farmer adoption is so slow?
So slow.
So if it is good, it should be spread quickly.
Exactly.
But in reality, it's not like that. The question of that, I will use your model to answer that question.
The question of the diffusion of innovation is another.
Like why it's not infectious?
Why it is not infectious? Yes. And I think it's the purpose of this work we want to do with marriage. It's a question of appropriation. This is something very important. If somebody at the university or the government says you have to apply that, then you have to find another way to.
Okay, there's a question, 2 questions from online. I think first I will invite Professor Damayanti Pugori. Are you ready for your question, Budami?
Yeah. Hello.
Dimas will turn on the volume.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
And I'll show a question from in the text.
Hello, Pak Pur. Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's clear now.
Yeah.
Please, Budami.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Wow, this is for me. This is very interesting because I'm definitely not a modeler, and I've often questioned the use of modeling, but lately with climate change, etc., I'm more interested in modeling. So my question is very basic. I hope you don't mind me asking very basic and maybe naive question. Yeah. Okay. So the first one is more about you mentioned behavior. So there's also value system that is integrated with this in this modeling, and we know that different communities have different sets of values. So I'm wondering what is that effect of the different value system in different countries or in different community has on the generalization of this model. Do you think that this model can actually be general enough so that it can be used in different countries? Is there a way to test that? That's my first question. And then the second, hello?
This model?
You can.
The methodology.
The companion modeling.
The companion, the methodology.
Yeah. So my question is more towards the companion modeling. I still don't quite understand the ultimate objective of this modeling. Are you trying to find a solution of a pest and disease, for instance, and how is it that value system of the different communities in different countries, for instance, can actually help in getting the result of what you want for pest and disease control for the companion modeling itself? So yeah, my question is very basic about the companion modeling. And has it been used in Asia, you know? Yes.
Okay, I try. I'm not sure. This is an example of a case study we did in Senegal. Working on a conflictual situation between farmer and breeders, and regarding the values. We didn't arrive in the system with saying that we know how the system works. We try to identify with the people the situation. How is we did some collective mapping of the system, and after that we had we identified some satisfaction criteria with the name they use to use that are not the scientific academical names, that is the local names, and they give a value for each kind of soil, for the rice or for the others, and they put their own characteristic satisfaction criteria for this kind of different soil. So this is, I would say that this is the kind of working on the values as a bottom-up approach. I don't know if I answer well your question, but this is one way to do, just to put all the scientific knowledge apart and to work with the real vocabulary they use in the field and the real criteria of satisfaction they use for the rice and the other crops. I don't know if I answer well your question.
Well, you have a there was a slide, I forgot which one, but there was a value system that you put into that slide. Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out what that means.
Yes. I try to answer.
How do you put? Yeah.
This one.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So this is not something easy. We have to do that with by interviews, by collective interviews and individual interviews to better understand what are the value systems. Wow. The example I told is just a specific case studies in Senegal, but in another place we can have another approach to identify the values. I'm not sure to answer again the question.
I think you have to have a data breakdown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You had a second question.
Yes.
Please, go ahead.
No, I guess I'm just not sure how you instill values into a model, because every society has their own values. And
Yes,
then
exactly.
does that make the model then become, how should I say that? How repeatable is the model or the result of the model in the
No.
long run?
Okay.
Yeah.
The methodology is repeatable. We try to have from this book, you can see that we try to have a repeatable methodology, but the model, each model is dedicated for one specific use case. We cannot, we don't try to have a general
Okay.
model of the value.
Okay.
Each
Thank
model
you.
is specific to one case study.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Budami. So, yeah, it seems that the model applied for specific area because the value is different, right? That's what I like to say. Yeah. Okay, there's another question. Can you just display the internet? I think there's in the chat there's a question from Kianto.
Okay. Question to Dr. Beilhe.
Yes, some student have question.
No, c'est question to Leïla.
No, this question to Dr. Bommel. What model or simulation are appropriate in the consideration for using the model or simulation for analyzing the interest and participatory of farmer and stakeholder to implement IPM? And the second question is, can the model or simulation you presented analyze other topic like climate, smart agriculture, implementation of good agriculture practices, and conservation of agriculture? Thank you.
I will try to read and answer at the same time. What model is simulation are complete? Analyzing the interest. To implement in IPM, for this, IPM is a university. I don't know, because there is each model is a representation of one system. So I have not a library of models that you can apply for a given case study. We have to design and construct this model with specialists in agronomy, in IPM, and with methodologies. But I don't have a library already ready with models that can use for. Can the model of formation you presented? Oh, dari sini nggak ada ini lagi Pak, ke sini. Yes. But none of the model I presented is useful to work on climate smart agriculture. We have to design another model for that. So I try to answer the question.
Yeah, there's a question regarding a link of percent. So it's nothing to do with the question. Yeah. Okay. Okay, any other questions? So please, last question. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Rax. I want to ask about the model. How about the farmer knowledge to affect the model?
How farmer
Knowledge farmer.
can affect the model? What we do, for example, when I presented this one, for example, yeah, this one. When I presented this one, this is not the behavior to be true. The behavior is a result of this scheme. This scheme represents the decision point, the rules that a farmer will adopt in winter, for example. This work has been done with the stakeholders. They design these tools themselves with our help. I didn't design this in my room only. Then I imposed that. No, this was a collective work with stakeholders. So I have a presentation papers on that. That's the question. And we say that this activity diagram, because of the decision point here, the one agent will follow a given way according to the question here that they will be. So, for example, here, if you reach that point, you will give supplement to its animal, otherwise, etc. So, this is not the behavior, this is the list of rules an agent will perform during a simulation or a game. So, but this work, speaking about knowledge of the farmers, we designed this model in Uruguay with the farmer, with specialists in agronomy, in breeding, in climate also. But it's a collective works, interdisciplinary works, and the farmers contributed to this design of the model. And even more, they were able at the end to understand, to identify failure in our model, because they were so aware of the behavior of the model, they were able to identify some failure in the design and to ask us to modify the model to answer to be more realistic with their. So I will at the end I can share my presentation, and there is some references, the publications. Thanks.
Good, yeah, one more question. Okay, the last one. Okay. Sorry, it's interesting. I think like this one is like a participatory approach to construct the model, and then our role is to help them to computerize it, and then we make a team to comprehend the phenomena. As far as my understanding, that the model has three characters: generality, reliability, and precision. But there is no model that present all the three, at most two. So that's why I understand that this kind of model is built based on precision and reliable. Like Budami said, generality should be passed to another country to make it more. The simplest the model is, more general.
Exactly.
That's why, and then if you want to make it precise and reliable in certain place, you have to add with the all the approach with participatory or other thing that might make it.
Yes.
What I learned from this presentation that I catch the simple model, the inflection thing that I may use to pass the question about the infections of the knowledge transfer among farmer. So that's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, do you have a close statement, so please, if you have any?
No. So just to say that it is our first time here, and we will go on the field with Marish to work on the question of the CBB, trying to use this methodology with her and within his PhD.
Yeah.
And also to say that to be autonomous in this kind of tools, maybe the first level is high. Okay. So, for example, every year in France, we have a course, an international course of 2 weeks. And I don't know if Marish will participate in September. We have to discuss about that.
Is it not online?
No, because we have to be present. We have to be here.
Because otherwise, a lot of Indonesian will participate in there. Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much. Give applause to about yeah. And we are at the end of this seminar. So okay, I would like to give electronic certificate to Dr. Leïla Bagny Beilhe. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. And we'll give you the
Not only we have electronic.
briefing. Okay. So this is a certificate for you.
Thank you very much.
Wow. Okay, you're welcome. And there's another one for Dr. Pierre. Pak Hermano, would you like to? Okay. This is for you, Dr. Pierre Bommel. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for Oh, 3 of us. How about 3 of us? Oh, wait. Yeah. Okay. Okay. In freestyle? Oh, great. From? That's mental. Okay, for this presentation, so I would like to close this seminar today with Alhamdulillah and thank you for participation of this seminar, for you in the online. Don't forget to fill the presentation. No, I mean the link of presentation. Again, for those of you to come here, I also would like to thank you very much. Okay, I will close this. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very nice questions.
Actually, Dr. Gamay, that I questioned the lady also one of the Maris advisor. Yeah. So yeah, please, Maris.
Have a nice day. You will report it to Pest in the research. Bagny is a. Yes, it is. We call it Paris-Manchapa. Paris-Manchapa is, Java is the name of the island. The Paris is your Paris.
Paris
Paris of Java.
Okay. Because secondary in that time, okay, it's very nice. Wow. Yeah.